to Ayuk, to the mailbox, to Kittle if he stays healthy. I didn't even mention George Kittle, by the way, who's sliding in the fantasy drafts because we just don't know how healthy he is and how healthy he will be. Who's one of the better tight ends when healthy. So I like your idea on Darnold. The minus 165, a little chalky, but when you're looking at this division and you X out the Rams and you X out the Cardinals, I think I'd still rest my hat here, but you can get plus money when we're going next with Seattle.
All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. So we gonna go over here and talk about Seattle, and I can't wait to talk about Seattle because something about Seattle, Jeff, in my opinion, this year. It's just something about this team. And let's go ahead and get into it. Now, Seattle last season they went 9-8. They were able to creep into the playoffs, get that 7th seed, and had to play against arch rival San Francisco. San Francisco swept them last year. Very rare. Very rare San Francisco sweeps Seattle during the season, and they swept them 3-0. And if anybody would have other than the Eagles, gave San Francisco a real run for their money, it was the Seahawks. And it just was, when you look at it, the 49ers went through some tough games to get to that beat down by the Eagles. They had to go through Seattle, who was ascending up and coming team, and then pretty much the second best team in the NFL and the Cowboy in the NFC. They had to beat them in the next round. So, it was a very trying time because they actually went against tougher and got absolutely bulldozed by the Eagles. But let me stay on topic with Seattle. Seattle, like you said, Jeff, had no expectations. Everybody had Seattle as a bad team. And then about week 2 or 3, I caught on to it. I said, they're not going to be a bad team because Geno has always been a serviceable backup for Russell Wilson. This is why they didn't go get a backup. This is why they didn't go draft a rookie. This is why they didn't need to do that because there wasn't any point to have a guy come in here and learn on the job when I already have a quarterback that knows what he's doing. Yeah, you look at him and say, okay, he's a flop. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. You know what I mean? And he's a guy that, pretty much you look at him and you say, yeah, he's a flop. He really did not play up to what we wanted him to be. But I never blamed Geno for that. I always blame Rex Ryan for that, Jeff, because Rex Ryan was the goofball that drafted him in the second round because he wanted to go ahead and be cute and piss off his starting quarterback, Mark Sanchez, and literally ruin the whole team and then ruined his coaching career at the same time, too. So that was more of a coach having a vendetta, him and the GM having a vendetta with a player and trying to teach lessons. And what happened was everybody ruined their careers somewhat. You know what I mean? And Geno had to be in the middle of that. And they had this pressure on Geno that he was going to be the New York savior. And it's not Geno's fault. It's New York's fault because their expectations are just too damn high. That's what it is at the end of the day. And, these guys are a team that you truly say to yourself, hey, they got the weapons. It don't matter what San Francisco thinks they have on the offensive side. When you look at offenses in this division and in this conference, Seattle's offense really is a top 3 situation, in my opinion. And I feel like you got a above average quarterback in Geno because his mental, his mind, what he knows how to do. He knows how to play the quarterback position. He knows how to be successful in this league. Then you got a good 3-headed monster in the backfield with the running game. You're going to be able to keep guys fresh in that situation. But then when you look at that wide receiver core, Jeff, you just say to yourself, exciting. You got Lockett, you got DK Metcalf, and JSN looks like he's a Pro Bowler this year. And then everybody doesn't mention this, but Noah Fant is one of the better big man tight ends in the NFL as well, too. I had him on my fantasy squad last year. He's a bench guy, but he came through pretty good for us in certain spots when I needed him to. So, you have really good players on that side, but the main thing that gets me really excited about Seattle is this: Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is back on the team as the heart and soul of the defense, and then the Legion of Boom, affect his return back to Seattle. They got Witherspoon, the number one, the first cornerback off the board. Then you get JSN, first wide receiver off the board. That should tell you alone that they've been doing a hell of a job in the scouting department for Seattle, and Seattle has built this team up to be a great offensive team because they know San Francisco has built themselves to be a great defensive team. But they got to have an offense that can really attack this defense, because then they are at an advantage, because when it really comes down to if their defense can really, would defense can step up better against the offense, their defense will be much better against San Francisco's offense than San Francisco defense is going to be against their offense if everything clicks. So I know that was a lot, but if everything clicks, then they should be good. Jeff, what are your subtle thoughts on this? And when we look at the situation, you see the over under 8.5 going into this year, and then a division championship of plus 230. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on Seattle moving forward?
I mean, the 8.5 again. They finished 9-8. It's in a division where you're supposed to go 2-0 against the Rams. You're supposed to go 2-0 against Arizona. They open up against the Rams. That's another one of those potential upset specials. I think the Seattle's about 5.5, 6-point favorites there. Again, if you're not going to take the Niners, then the plus 230 obviously is very appetizing, because I do expect either the Niners or Seattle to win the division. Now, I am high on certain positions in fantasy, especially. Kenneth Walker got dinged up in preseason. Same with Charbonneau from UCLA. Charbonneau, since getting injured, has looked fabulous. So I like the two-headed monster there. Obviously, DK and Lockett in Jigba. Fractured wrist or something, out at practice with a cast on. My gut tells me, this is just my opinion, he misses game 1. He will be getting closer in game 2. He will start game 3. Now, the problem with that is, if I remember correctly, Seattle's bye week is week 5. So if there are any setbacks, you can hold them out the first month, including the bye week, and get them ready for game 5. I do love the offense. Now, there is a part of me that does think there could be some Geno regression. He came on the scene last year, and for fantasy purposes and regular NFL purposes, comeback player of the year, something no one thought he would do, an amazing year. The Legion of Boom, Bobby Wagner, all their first round picks hit. I've been picking them up as a defense. If I don't get a couple of the elite defenses, I'm just leaning on Seattle, especially with the start of their schedule this year. I think they go over the 8.5. I can see a 10-7 here all day, with maybe the 49ers, 11-6, 12-5. I got them second in this division, Pops. I like a lot of them. Pete Carroll just keeps on marching. And it's going to be definitely a fun team to watch, Pups.
All right. Well, I'm going to finish with this when it comes down to Seattle. And I feel like Seattle, in all honesty, Seattle is going to be a team that's going to be really good this year, because they still have the best coach in the division. I don't care what anybody says. Pete Carroll is a guy who can really coach up any type of roster. And it was proven last year. You give Shanahan that roster, he goes 6-11. You give McVay that roster, he goes 4-13. You give Kingsbury that roster, they probably won 2 games. But you give Pete Carroll that roster, Pete Carroll will figure out a way to be either in the playoffs or at the door of the playoffs. And that's been his whole tenure in Seattle. You know what I mean? There's only been about 1 or 2 seasons where Seattle, over the last 25 years, where Seattle was really a putrid, awful team. And that just goes to show you the consistency of Pete Carroll ever since the days of when he was with your Patriots. when
Eating
go ahead.
bologna sandwiches. Bob Kraft
Eating,
just bought the team, and he wanted the team. I think it was during OTAs of practice. They wanted to feed him bologna sandwiches, and Pete Carroll was just like, "What are you doing?" Well, we're serving him bologna sandwiches, and Pete goes, Not on my watch, you are.
Right. And you see, and you know, now Bob Kraft, he acts like he's the Ritz Carlton, the owners. Oh, we got everything so fancy for our team, and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? You want to treat Pete Carroll like, you know, just a whatever coach. But Parcells came in there and you want to spoil people. You know, differences, you know what I mean, about who you is on that food chain. You know how it goes, Jeff. You know
if
how it
if
goes.
if it wasn't for Pete Carroll and Bill Parcells, there would have been no Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. So, and that's the one thing around here locally. Bill doesn't get enough credit. They want to just make sure this is Bill getting all the elite props and everything with Tom, but it was Bill Parcells that started the process.
Right. And nobody, and if you know football, if you've been around for the last 50 years and know football, that's not even an argument right there. Who started the dynasty? It wasn't, everything started with that first Super Bowl against Green Bay. It didn't start when, we had that miracle game against the Rams. It started in that situation right there. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and take our first commercial break. And I really truly do like what I see here.